Okay. Forget the columns even, just mass in the way. It slows it down. No, but this, no, they limit it to free fall. So what did they, oh, I've been discussing this. Nothing in the way. How do you get mass out of the way? Of course, explosives will do that, right? You just move the mass out of the way, and you see this in controlled demolitions. They don't really answer, so here's what they do. They assert without proof that this free fall is consistent. That's their term, and I'm quoting here. It's just, one sentence they stick in to take care of this. It's consistent with the results of the global collapse analysis discussed, blah, blah, in their preliminary report. It's consistent. I'm sorry, it's not consistent, folks. And I'm willing to publish that and challenge them. And if they try to publish this, that free fall is consistent with this, global collapse that they're talking about, then I don't think it'll pass peer review. This is not a peer-reviewed report. I feel it is fair to say. Of course, they did have that public peer review, but then, they didn't answer all our questions. Okay, there's another retraction. I think this is important about the debris, the effect of the debris, which made a big deal of also in the popular mechanics and other places. NIST says, other than initiating the fires in World Trade Center 7, the damage from the debris from World Trade Center 1 had little effect on initiating the collapse of World Trade Center 7. So not only is the diesel fuel not important, the debris hitting the building is also not important. So what is important is fire, and somehow then we're to believe this model, which is not available for testing and which has these parameters in it that we would really like to test. Perhaps with the Obama administration and transparency promise, we'll get our hands on the model and see how it behaves with realistic parameters. The steel I alluded to earlier. Here's some photos from World Trade Center. There's actually from World Trade Center 7 and from the towers. And I can't remember which is which here, but these were published by Worcester Polytechnic Institute. This admits they did not look at any steel from the building. That's topic one. Now let's talk about the towers a little bit, bring you up to date on that. As you can see from the photograph during the construction of a tower here, looks like the other tower's over here, there is a strong core. These are the beams of the core, and then there are perimeter columns. There's 47 steel, these large steel core columns. Notice they're interconnected so that there will be heat transported away, you see. So, here's a picture of a wood-burning stove, steel stove. I have a wood-burning stove made out of steel. I'm not worried about the thing melting or failing. I can stoke up that fire all I want, and it's not going to melt or fail. Now, NIST agreed that the steel did not melt. They agree with that. Then they have a little trouble explaining this molten material flowing out of the South Tower just minutes before its collapse. It's a subject in my first paper. But nevertheless, let's pile up office material next to these columns here and just set it ablaze. Is this thing just going to give up and collapse? Do you think? I mean, just a little common sense, first of all. And so what do they do? There's 240 perimeter steel beams as well. And here you see them. You can see over here in the photo. The core is very strong. Let's not think that these are hollow tubes. They're not. That's a very solid core. The floor office space is around the central core, you see, here. Okay. Now, in the so-called official model by Bazant and his collaborators, published 2007, they discuss this as out of their paper, a tamper. So as the plane came in and caused damage, then you have the floors above that can serve as a tamper, is the explanation, to knock the rest of the building down. So for example, in the North Tower, the plane hit at about floor 94, 95, is that right, Jim? And so there's approximately 15 floors above that would serve as a tamper to knock down the other 110 minus 15, which would be 80, no, 95 floors, thank you. I confused with both towers. Okay, so let's see if that works. Now, I've mentioned to one of the co-authors on this paper that, you know, there's a third law effect. So if the tamper is pushing down, you should show an arrow pushing up on that upper block. So that's the third law. And he was trying to argue that the force on the upper block is unbalanced. Sure, it accelerates, it's unbalanced, but still the third law applies. I had a hard time convincing him, and I don't know if you followed that, John, but wow. It's just hard to explain to this co-author on this paper that the third law applies. He's saying it only applies to billiard balls and things like that. It applies for complex systems. It doesn't matter how complex it is, the third law applies. So there's a force up, and by George, there should be an arrow showing that force upward on that. Furthermore, the upper columns, as you go up, the core columns get smaller, less steel, and this had been heated. So that would also tend to weaken them, you'd think. In any case, you have 15 floors competing against 95 floors here trying to tamp it down. Notice when it gets to the bottom, finally this upper block is supposed to disappear. There's another problem. Let's look at, here we see in slow motion, the beginning of the demise of the North Tower. Now notice this upper block. We'll see it again here. And see if it appears to be remaining intact. Now these are data that you're looking at, the actual beginning of the demise of this building. If you look at the upper block, see here's where the 15 floors begin around here. Look at it's being destroyed. That upper block is being destroyed. See that?
Yeah.
Now there's a antenna on top that allows you to follow the motion. And this has been analyzed in some detail. If you look in papers in the Journal of 9/11 Studies and look at, there are several papers that talk about this demise of the towers and challenge the official story. Let me take you to a photograph, quite interesting, in, as this tower is being destroyed. You see, you can pretty much pick out from where all these dust clouds are emanating from that the destruction is occurring about here now. And then there's, where's the tamper? I don't see it. I mean, this model is a nice imaginative explanation, but it lacks physical reality. You see what I'm saying? And we have to stick with the facts, and then we proceed from there. We don't say, well, this would explain it if we ignore some features about the third law.